Hello, hello, hello. Travis Rohr here with C3 Project Pros. And tonight we're going to talk about the hidden cost of house flipping and the wonderful world of, where does your money, get sucked up that's outside of the world of just simply flipping. So let's get into it. This is October 26th, and we're again talking about house flipping hidden costs. So let's go. So about C3 Project Pros, I'm Travis Rohr. I've been a builder for 30 plus years, started in 1995 with my own company, third generation guy. Anyway, I've got experience in all kinds of disciplines: custom homes, remodels, additions, multifamily hotels, historical renovations. I've done some flips and actually have a specialty in dental clinic. But that's, not what we're here to talk about. We're talking about the flipping aspect of it. So let's get into it. We're going to talk about 8 different market situations and cost thresholds that you need to be aware of. And one is property acquisitions. Second is renovation repair costs, your holding costs, finance costs, staging and marketing costs, your carry cost, compliance, legal fees, and market fluctuations. So let's get into it. Property acquisition costs. Well, of course, that's what I don't have on here is realtor fees, but you're going to have in here your title insurance, your escrow. There's going to be, loan application fees. If you're doing property inspection, you're going to have that property inspection fee. You'll have other fees that might be associated with a property depending on where you're at. There could be mold testing. It could be lead testing for, especially if you have an aged home older than the 1975 lineage, to do for lead paint testing for your dump fees. You can also run into I think I said insect mold. Um, uh, Goodness, things like that for your, anyway, those third party inspections that you might need to get checked off the box. And a lot of time the appraisal fee is going to be on the buyer portion, but if you're trying to do something on the front end to maybe have a reduced claim, that's where those fees would come in for you at. Now let's get into the next one, which is your renovation and repair cost. Now, of course, you're going to have your renovation budget, and in a separate section, I talk about, if it's a light, medium, or heavy repair. But the cost that you should have as far as your contingency budget is going to be your unforeseen repair. Unforeseen repair. So that's going to be in a separate line item budget just in case. Now, and the reason I set that number aside is because none of us, even me with all the buildings and stuff I've seen in there, we're not forensic scientists. We don't have x-ray vision. So there's areas, and you can, have a good indication. Like if you have a really soft plumbing floor, that might be indication of a rotten floor, especially areas where there's water, laundry, kitchen, or bath. What about your permit fees? If you're just doing remove and replace, there's some jurisdictions that allow you just to rip out, let's say it's a kitchen, you rip out the kitchen, put a new one in without moving anything around. They might allow you to do that work without having permits. Areas where I worked, specifically Washington State, forget it. If you touch it, they want a permit for it. So especially if you're replacing, plumbing fixtures, they're going to want to see that rough in plumbing, stack test, things like that. Those fees are, permits are typically pretty inexpensive when it comes to renovation, unless you're doing big structural stuff. And then you might get into some structural repair, engineering fees, things like that. And then, of course, if you're on the front end of your project, what are the costs of your labor and material prices, and are they expected to, take a steep jump? And that might seem a little ridiculous to calculate in on the front end, especially when your project might be just a month down the road. But it's just something to consider, especially if you've got several months in the lead. I know that in the last couple of years, like the cost of wiring alone, it's shocking what a roll of Romex costs. And plumbing parts and pieces. Those are the two. Shingles. Anything petroleum based has really gone up quite a bit. Precious metals with the wiring. So it's just really, don't use assumptive costs on that stuff. Double check your pricing. Holding costs. A lot of times, this can be mostly in your closing documents with the property taxes and things like that. Unless you're buying a property that had taxes in arrears, you're going to need to catch those up to make sure that you're compliant with the standing of your property. And then utilities. You're going to be running up some utility bills when you're there. And this is where, when I'm really talking about the three pillars of C3, time, money, team, time being my first one. If you're going to have a project that runs on and on and on and runs a couple extra month, well, what if your electric bill is 50, 60 bucks a month, 100 bucks a month, and maybe a minor water bill. But if you live in an area that gets really cold, you may be running a lot of heat, or in the summer, maybe running some cooling. So be mindful of how long your project open time is going to be and what those utilities are. And then, of course, insurance. I do highly recommend, when you're picking a property up, first you're going to have to insure it, but then maybe even a builder's risk policy, which covers the goods and services that you're implementing into the project during the duration of your construction. So those are things to consider. Your finance costs. Now, again, we're going back to time. So your interest payments on your loan, whether it's an interest only loan or you have a set rate of return, the clock is ticking as soon as you use that money, until your project is sold, closed, and in somebody else's hand. You're paying interest daily on that. So make sure that you're doing as best as you can to get that time collapsed on your project to have the lowest amount of fees that you can. And then, of course, your origination fees and your loans. I've seen processing acquisition fees. I've seen a couple closing statements from hard money lenders that I find to be very unfavorable. And regardless of what that fee looks like, it is part of the cost of the flip. So make sure you're calculating that in and not losing sight of that. Your carrying cost. Now, of course, your loan payments, whether or not it's interest only or not, or uh, or monthly payments based on your principal. So make sure you have that. And then of course your opportunity costs, and that's the potential income you could have earned on the money that it's tied up in investing somewhere else. So if you've pulled money from say your 401k, and did a self-directed piece of it, and then like some IRAs, stocks, whatever you cashed in, took a huge uptick. Well, that money has got to be calculated, and how that uh, is allocated towards your property. Staging and marketing. I've seen staging seems to be really popular. Laura and I have recently sold a couple properties that we both staged, and staging certainly helps. It's a kind of a funny little. We're pretty happy with the furniture that we have. We think it's lovely and beautiful, and it's funny. The stagers are like, "Get that crap out of here! We're putting our stuff in." So that's kind of a funny thing. And staging costs can vary depending on if it's a relatively modest flip. You might just do some decorations in the kitchen, like a living room, like you're seeing here, and then you've got all the bedrooms that are vacant, or maybe just the master, whatever it's called now, the primary bedroom that is stage. So depending on what that is, I have on here marketing and advertising expenses, and although I'm listing it, I firmly believe that is something that the realtor should be paying for, and they might want to negotiate something with you. But I think that's a real estate professional's expense, especially the obviously the listing agent. And there are some listing agents that have a affiliate arrangement with stagers that might be able to get you a good discount on that. So keep that in mind. Legal fees. If you have a buyer that comes to you directly prior to you having a listing agreement with somebody, or if you have located a property that you're trying to purchase, I really recommend having an attorney write your purchase sale agreement and make all that documentation, because a lot of times you can get that for a 1% fee, which is pretty common from the attorney perspective, versus a 3% for your realtors for that side of it. And then be careful of fines and penalties. Make sure that in your jurisdiction you're paying attention to what you can and cannot do, whether it's dump fees and dumping goods that haven't been tested, whether it's doing work without a permit when you should have a permit, especially if you get a work stoppage. Getting red tagged isn't just the embarrassment of getting red tagged. It's the fines and penalties that come with it, because you could be required to pay 2.5, 3 times the original value of the permit. And don't fool yourself in thinking that your permit office is going to be your friend and expedite you a permit in the next day or so, when you've been red tagged. They're likely to slow roll that one, so which increases your carry cost for your interest and all the other fees we've talked about thus far. So just play by the book and do it right. Now let's talk about market fluctuations. Wow, today is October, whatever today is, in 2023, and boy, has the tide shifted in the last couple of years from traditionally, interest rates of 3.5 to 5% to now it's what is it, 7.5, with no sign of any slowdown in, or not slow down, but rollback of interest rates back to a reasonable rate. So be prepared for that when you're forecasting that. Your carry cost just doubled for the interest rates that we've seen in the last year or so. So be mindful of that. And also when the economy, like people are predicting that it's um, coming into a recession, people are holding on to their money. They're that your strongest buyer pool in US right now is cash buyers only. And depending if you're doing a entry level flip, the likelihood of somebody having cash for something like that is greatly reduced. And there's an interesting stat I read in the banking news. It was a long time ago, but it was for every percentage point of increase you have in the interest rates, you lose 1 to 5% of the market of the potential buying pool. So the buying power just keeps getting driven down and down. So if you have a market segment that has 10% of the potential buyers that fit your profile of what property you can buy for, the more the interest rates drive up, you went from 10%, it could be quickly down to 5%. So now you're hoping for the needle in the haystack and hoping they want to sell their property as well. So it's just be aware of market fluctuations and realize that could have a real serious effect of your bottom line. So all in, to mitigate the cost of the hidden costs, it's crucial that you do your due diligence, that you calculate all these odds, that you do a proper schedule and get your time collapse. Your exposure is that much reduced. And we like to do the case analysis for all properties, where we compile, analyze, strategize, and execute. So pre-planning, proper planning, making sure that you have your contingency budgets taken care of, making sure that the market is right for your target market pool of that buying segment is good. It's about how much risk can you take and stomach, and creating a level of certainty that your plan will be executed properly. Um, Now, I really appreciate your time here today. You can see me at c3projectpros.com. And again, you can email me at travis@c3projectpros. I'm happy to jump on a call, answer questions, and I look forward to talking with you. I hope this was informative. Uh, Please drop a note. Let me know if I covered everything. If you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, I really appreciate you taking the time. And today's Thursday. Happy Thursday to everybody. Take care.